Hi all, thank you for tuning in. Today we're going to look at another Philip K. Dick novel, this time Plans of the Alphane Moon from 1964. This book is a fascinating mixture of psychological satire, interplanetary politics, with just enough espionage plot to keep the pages moving. On the surface, it reads like a science fiction comedy, but underneath the humor is a serious meditation on what it means to live in a world defined by textbook categories of madness. Like many of Dick's novels from the early 1960s, Clans doesn't follow a single straightforward plotline, but weaves together several strands. We're going to examine the book as usual, and at the end of this video I put together a collage of drawings that I was inspired to do. I do like to draw scenes from the book that I read that come to mind while I'm reading. But first, let's review the contents. The novel is set in part on a moon called Alpha 3M2, populated solely by former inhabitants of a mental asylum. After a war between Earth and Alphane system, the population of Alpha 3M2 was abandoned and left to their own devices. Instead of collapsing into chaos, the former psychiatric patients formed a society of their own. Over the decades, they developed an intricate political system organized entirely around psychiatric diagnoses in a form of caste system. The result is a bizarre yet oddly functional civilization. In terms of clans, there are the Mansies or Manics, the Pairs or Paranoiacs, the Hebes, Hebephrenics, the Schizzes, Schizophrenics, the Obcoms, Obsessive Compulsives, and the Polys, Polymorphous Schizophrenics. This setup is comical and unsettling at the same time. It explores the following. If you literalized the categories of psychiatry into entire classes of people, what kind of society would you get? Clans is one of those Dick novels where we encounter an inflation of characters with strange names. Personally, when I am reading, I tend to underline every new character that is being introduced and list them at the beginning of the book, so to have a sort of character map at hand. This helps me keep track. In terms of main characters, there is the Riddersdorf couple. Mary Riddersdorf, a psychiatrist who is sent out to assess and analyze the population of the Alphane Moon, and her husband Chuck, the protagonist, who is a CIA agent and after their divorce wishes to kill his ex-wife. Chuck, in my opinion, is modelled heavily after PKD himself. Time and time again I am amazed at the blatant misogyny of Dick's characters. At one point in the book, I literally wrote on a page note, "What a loser," when Chuck, after failing to seduce a so-called breast-heavy TV actress, instantly creeps back to the more assertive and less attractive Joan character for comfort. Dick really must have used this book to vent some of his personal frustration with the women in his own life. So the following 3 mid-20th century gender tropes are exaggerated to extremes. First, the domineering or manipulative woman, often depicted as ambitious, power-hungry, or emotionally cold. Second, the highly sexualized woman, whose identity revolves around attractiveness, flirtation, or promiscuity. And third, the fragile woman, overly needy, unstable or dependent, and sometimes infantilized. His female characters become projections of stereotypical gendered pathologies. It's hysteria, seductiveness, and passivity. In 1964, when PKD wrote this book, he was married to his third wife, Anne William Rubinstein. They had married in 1959 and remained together until 1964, when they separated and divorced. This period was turbulent for Dick, marked by intense productivity, amphetamine use, and growing psychological instability. His marriage to Anne overlapped with the writing of and publication of Clans of Alphane Moon, and it is no surprise that we find a great deal of autobiographical material projected onto the protagonist, Chuck Rittersdorf. But aside from the doom and gloom Chuck character, there are also generally funny and redeeming figures, such as the alien character Lord Running Clam, easily the most memorable and likable character of this book, a telepathic self-locomoting yellow slime mold from Ganymede, who befriends Chuck and helps him on his adventure. So I'm going to read you an excerpt from the book where the protagonist Chuck plans to off himself. He wants to jump out of a window. And he's interrupted by one of his neighbors, by that alien character, the slime mold. From inside him, a voice, but not his own, said, "Please tell me your name, regardless of whether you intend or do not intend to jump." Turning, Chuck saw a yellow Ganymedean slime mold that had silently flowed under the door of the Connacht and was gathering itself into the heap of small globes which comprised its physical being. "I rent the Connacht across the hall," the slime mold declared. Chuck said, "Among Terrans it's customary to knock. I possess nothing to knock with. In any case, I wished to enter before you departed. It's my personal business whether I jump or not." "No Terran is an island," the slime mold more or less quoted. "Welcome to the building which we who rent apts here have humorously dubbed Discarded Arms Connachts. There are others here whom you should meet. Several Terrans, like yourself, plus a number of non-Ts of assorted physiognomy, some which will repel you, some which no doubt will attract. I had planned to borrow a cup of yogurt culture from you, but in view of your preoccupation it seems an insulting request." "I haven't moved in anything as yet." He swung his leg back over the sill, stepped back into the room away from the window. He was not surprised to see the Ganymedean slime mold. A ghetto situation existed with non-Ts, no matter how influential and highly placed in their own societies on Terra they were, forced to inhabit substandard housing such as this. "Could I carry a business card?" the slime mold said. "I would now present it to you. I am an importer of uncut gems, a dealer in second-hand gold, and, under the right circumstances, a fanatic buyer of philatelic collections. As a matter of fact, I have in my apt, at the moment, a choice collection of early US, with special emphasis on mint blocks of 4 of the Columbus set. Would you—" It broke off. "I see you would not. In any case, the desire to destroy yourself has at least temporarily abated from your mind. That is good. In addition to my announced commercial, aren't you required by law to curb your telepathic ability while on Terra?" Chuck said. "Yes, but your situation seemed to be exceptional. Mr. Rittersdorf, I cannot personally employ you, since I require no propagandist services, but I have a number of contracts among the 9 moons, given time—" "No thanks," Chuck said roughly. "I just want to be left alone." He had already endured enough assistance in job acquisition to last him a lifetime. "But on my part, quite unlike your wife, I have no ulterior motive," the slime mold ebbed closer. "Like most Terran males, your sense of self-respect is bound up in your wage-earning capacities, an area in which you have grave doubts as well as extreme guilt. I can do something for you, but it will take time. Presently I leave Terra and start back to my own moon. Suppose I pay you 500 skins, US of course, to come with me. Consider it a loan if you want." What would I do on Ganymede? Irritably, Chuck said. Don't you believe me either? I do have a job that I consider adequate. I don't want to leave it. Subconsciously, don't read my subconscious back to me and get out of here and leave me alone. He turned his back on the slime mold. I'm afraid your suicidal drive will return, perhaps even before tonight. Let it. The slime mold said, there is only one thing that can help you, and my miserable job offer is not it. What is it then? A woman to replace your wife. Now you're acting as a... Not at all. This is neither physically based nor eternal. It is simply practical. You must find a woman who can accept you, love you as you are, otherwise you'll perish. Let me ponder this. And in the meantime, control yourself. Give me 5 hours and remain here. The slime mold moved slowly under the door, through the crack and outside in the hall. Its thoughts dimmed. As an importer, buyer and dealer, I have my contacts with Terrans of all walks live. Then it was gone. Shakily, Chuck lit a cigarette and walked away, a long distance away from the window, to seat himself on the ancient Danish-style sofa and wait. It was hard to know how to react to the slime mold charitable offer. He was both angered and touched, and in addition puzzled. Could the slime mold actually help him? It seemed impossible. He waited 1 hour. A knock sounded on the door of the Connaught. It could not be the Ganymedean returning, because the slime mold could not knock. Rising, Chuck went to the door and opened it. A Terran girl stood there. Dick's brilliance lies not so much in the plot mechanics, which are sometimes loose, as in the layers of social and psychological commentary. Let's unpack some of those key themes of clans. At the heart of the novel is the question, what is sanity? On Alpha 3, what Earth considers mental illness becomes the very principle of order. By turning psychiatric diagnoses into civic roles, Dick destabilizes these categories themselves. Who really is insane? The colony that has adapted to its own structure, or the Earth society that abandoned them and now seeks to reclaim that moon? The novel suggests that our labels are not timeless truths, but contingent frameworks. Each clan embodies an exaggerated form of nationalized psychology. Paranoia as defense posture, mania as charismatic but reckless leadership, obsession as bureaucratic rigidity. The absurdity of Earth meddling in a society that has achieved its own fragile equilibrium underscores the dangers of imperial arrogance. Like much of PKD's work, the novel interrogates projection, how we internalize our inner conflicts. On Alpha 3, psychiatric categories that normally exist within individuals are externalized into clans. The society is literally built out of projections. Similarly, Chuck and Mary project their insecurities and frustrations onto each other, escalating their personal conflict into a political crisis instead of resolving it. The novel thus suggests that human life, whether personal or political, is dominated in large part by our inability to integrate our own inner contradictions. And maybe parody is the only way to keep our own sanity in a world of crazy upside-down policy making. Reading Clans today, I found myself reflecting on the ways our own society organizes itself around categories, political, medical, social, that on the one hand are meant to contain complexity, but on the other often end up reinforcing division. Just as the Alphane Moon lives by its clans, more and more we live by our own identities, diagnoses and labels. Do they help us cooperate, or do they just trap us in endless rivalry? I was also struck by how much of the novel feels relevant to our own fractured political climate. we too sort ourselves into tribes, pick a side, and then conduct politics as a perpetual clash of mutually suspicious groups. It seems we lost the ability to appreciate different points of view and then forming our own opinion. Like the paranoids and the manics, we alternate between defensive posturing and reckless bursts of enthusiasm, while as obsessives we shuffle papers and as depressives we merely sigh from the sidelines rather than becoming active ourselves. In many ways, Clans of the Alphane Moon is satire, but it does cut close to the bone. Finally, there is the question of marriage, which Dick entwines with politics. Chuck and Mary's struggles are beyond personal, they are emblematic. If two individuals cannot reconcile differences without resorting to sabotage, projection, and the wish to annihilate one another, what hope is there for a society of millions? The novel suggests that the smallest unit of politics, the nuclear family, is as fraught as the largest. Clans of the Alphane Moon may not be PKD's most polished or tightly plotted novel, but it is certainly one of his most conceptually daring. By externalizing psychiatric categories into a functioning political system, he turns madness into a mirror of our collective life. The novel is equal parts comedy and drama, satire and allegory, science fiction and domestic drama. Though often entertaining, the novel may prove challenging for PKD newcomers to fully appreciate. While its exaggerated strangeness and tangled plot lines, Clans of the Alphane Moon is best enjoyed by readers who have already developed an acquired taste for PKD's unique style. It is not a comfortable read. At times the absurdity verges on farce, and at times the cruelty of the characters feels all too real. But in the end, the book lingers because it forces us to ask how much of our normal world is just a fragile arrangement of our own collective insanities. Read alongside Dick's other mid-1960s works, it stands as a sharp experiment in political psychology and social satire, anticipating later discussions about the reality of categories and identity politics. It is a novel that laughs at madness while also suggesting that madness might be the most honest way to describe the human condition. I give this book 5 out of 5 Ganymedean slime molds. I hope you were able to take something from this episode. If you enjoyed it, please do like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye!